When a company dominates its market, generating massive profits and operating without serious rivals, it looks invincible. But this peak performance is a vulnerable state. This vulnerability is known as the trap of past success. Leadership teams navigating a highly profitable cycle develop dangerous blind spots. They rely on the legacy strategies that got them to the top, ignoring shifting consumer behaviors and new digital tools creeping into the market. We can map this corporate life cycle using the S-curve. Every business starts at the bottom, relying on founder grit to establish product-market fit. Once that model works, the company scales rapidly upward through horizontal progress. Eventually, every market matures. Growth stalls, core products face commoditization, and the business hits a plateau. This peak is the strategic inflection point. Environmental pressures leave the company with exactly two options: reinvent itself entirely or slide downward into irrelevance. By the time financial statements show the signs of that decline, the momentum is already lost. To survive, a company must make the leap to a new trajectory while it still occupies the peak. Proactive cannibalization requires a company to intentionally kill its own profitable legacy model, a move necessary to ensure long-term adaptation. Consider Netflix. In the early 2000s, they built their first S-curve as a logistics-heavy service, mastering the delivery of millions of DVDs through the mail. Recognizing the physical media market was nearing its plateau, Netflix launched digital streaming. This pivot required shifting their entire operational infrastructure and company culture away from the DVD business that was currently generating their revenue. A few years later, realizing their role as a simple distributor left them exposed to high licensing costs, they jumped to a third S-curve. By producing original content like House of Cards, they abandoned their identity as a tech utility to become a global media studio. Adobe followed a similar pattern. For years, they sold perpetual licenses for tools like Photoshop, boxed and shipped for over $1,000 a unit. Anticipating a shift to a mobile, cloud-first world, Adobe abruptly stopped selling boxed software in 2013. They sacrificed immediate, guaranteed revenue to force their customer base onto a cloud-first subscription model. Though revenue dipped initially and customers complained, Adobe established a recurring revenue machine. Taking a deliberate short-term financial hit is the required price for establishing a future-proof operation. Other companies rely on opportunistic evolution. They take a core internal strength and apply it to a completely unrelated market void. For decades, NVIDIA dominated the PC gaming market. They built their entire initial growth cycle around perfecting the graphics processing unit to render better pixels for video games. In the mid-2000s, they recognized their gaming chips were perfect for the complex mathematics of parallel processing. Instead of waiting for gaming to plateau, they used this core competency to start building infrastructure for data centers, establishing their position long before the AI boom arrived. Wipro executed an even more dramatic leap. For its first several decades, the company's entire business model was manufacturing refined vegetable oil and laundry soap. Spotting the massive void left in the computing market after IBM's 1977 exit from India, leader Azim Premji executed a complete strategic pivot. He redirected all resources to build computer hardware and eventually a global IT services operation. Longevity relies on leadership's ability to identify unexpected market voids and redirect existing strengths to fill them. Executing these pivots raises an immediate logistical question. Transitioning to a new business model is expensive and fragile, requiring massive capital without bankrupting the organization. Reliance Industries solved this by using overlapping growth cycles. They had established themselves as an industrial powerhouse, operating massive oil refineries and petrochemical plants that were deep in their maturity phase. Sensing a shift toward a data-driven economy, Reliance took the record cash flows generated by those mature oil assets and poured them directly into the high-risk startup phase of their new digital platform, Geo. The old industry funded the new one. But traditional businesses that lack the massive cash reserves of a conglomerate need an alternative survival mechanism. This is where co-opetition becomes vital. Rather than fiercely competing, traditional companies can collaborate with modern platform ecosystems. By plugging into these shared networks, they gain immediate access to advanced AI analytics, helping them decode shifting customer preferences without having to build the infrastructure from scratch. Navigating a market inflection point rarely works as a solo endeavor. Survival often depends on integrating into broader ecosystems, sharing resources, and distributing the risk of innovation across multiple partners. Escaping the trap of past success requires a permanent state of structural adaptation. Mahindra & Mahindra manages this through a federated structure, allowing them to ride multiple, overlapping S-curves simultaneously. They used the capital from their early steel trading business to pivot into utility vehicles, and are now leaping into electric vehicles to outpace the decline of internal combustion engines. To maintain this level of agility, companies like Netflix, Adobe, and Mahindra synchronize their strategy, culture, and operations, a process called full-stack transformation. Aligning these three pillars ensures the business remains scalable and highly adaptable when the market turns. It prevents the operational drag that typically occurs when a legacy culture tries to implement a modern strategy. Remaining stationary at the top of a market is a certain path to decline. Long-term survival demands a relentless willingness to dismantle the very systems that made you an apex predator yesterday in order to engineer the models that will keep you alive tomorrow.